like the sterile silence of a billion-dollar boardroom where people pretend their coffee isn't shaking in their hands. Yeah, that happened. And I was the waitress with the accent everyone heard before they heard me. The place was Ethelgard, all quiet wealth and crystal, knives that looked like museum pieces, wine that cost more than rent. My uniform a black dress that fit like armor, hair in a tight bun because loose hair in fine dining is a sin, feet aching, smile steady. And that night table 7 was an island of noise. Richard Davenport. Yes, that Richard, scrolling his phone, polite, distracted, and Tiffany Hayes in full performance mode. Perfect makeup, perfect pout. 2 friends as copy-paste as her captions. I brought water. More water, sir, ma'am. I said, professional, calm, and she waved without looking. We're ready to order, finally. So I waited, pen out. A storm already brewing. She wanted Sauvignon Blanc and tripped over the name like it owed her money. I said it the right way, soft, easy. I wasn't correcting her. I was doing my job. And that's when she looked up at me like I was a smudge on her mirror and said, "Where'd they find you, sweetheart, fresh off the boat from? What is it, Boratistan?" Her friends giggled, the kind of laugh that cuts, and Richard, the man with all the power, glanced at me, then back to his phone. Silence is a choice. I felt the heat hit my cheeks, the shame. Whatever, just bring the wine. And I walked away like a queen leaving a fight she's already won. Let me back up a sec. My accent is Polish, Gdansk to Queens by way of too many small humiliations. I came at 16, my dad's stroke knocked our family sideways. My mom, once a literature teacher, now cleaned houses with hands that cracked in winter. I studied by night, business and computer science. Worked by later night, wrote code between 2 and 5 a.m., the sound of my keyboard the only proof I had that another life was possible. A live score I called the Integrity Index. It was bold, maybe insane, and it worked. For months, nobody cared. Then Catherine Albright from Horizon Ventures did. A legend with eyes that could read a balance sheet across state lines. She asked for a demo, then a meeting. The location in the calendar almost made me laugh out loud when the invite hit my phone 2 weeks earlier. Davenport Innovations, 45th floor boardroom. So after Tiffany's little show, after Richard's quiet sin, I walked home 50 blocks, cold air burning my lungs, and promised myself that when he looked at me next, he would see what he'd missed. Morning. I became the person I'd been building in the dark, the consignment shop suit that fit like it was made for me, the white blouse my mother ironed like it was a prayer, hair in a low chignon. Accent intact, not a flaw. An origin. I rehearsed until the slides felt like bones, kissed my sleeping mother's forehead, checked my dad's monitors, and took the subway to Midtown with commuters who didn't know a war drum was beating in my chest. Catherine met me in the lobby in a red suit like a warning flare. "You don't need them, they need you," she said, and the elevator lifted us into thin air. The boardroom was glass and view and intimidation. Executives filed in, polite, dismissive, eyes on the door. And then Richard walked in mid-sentence. Tokyo call, coffee, corporate choreography. And when his eyes found me, something in his face fell straight through the floor. He knew. I knew he knew. But I gave him nothing, just a professional nod, Mr. Davenport. And then I did what I came to do. I told the truth in the language of numbers. Every product has a hidden history, I said. And Nightingale makes that history visible. We can flag a subcontractor using child labor before it hits the headlines. Reroute in seconds. Keep cost and delivery on target while your integrity index stays above threshold. The COO leaned in. The CFO tried to poke holes. I showed them how the math holds. And when I ran the live demo, red lines turning green across a map like a time-lapse of a conscience waking up, the room went quiet in that way rooms go quiet when the future steps in uninvited. Catherine. He walked us to the elevators himself, tried to speak about last night, and I gave him the only line he had earned. Yesterday, I was your waitress. Today, I'm a potential partner. I expect to be treated with courtesy in both. You failed the first, don't fail the second. I meant it. I left. I breathed for the first time in 24 hours. Here's your twist. Because stories like this never stay contained. By dinner, Tiffany went live to her millions, mascara tracks glowing like runway lights, painting me as a schemer who stalked a billionaire and faked a sob story. A Polish girl with a thick accent. She never said my name. She didn't have to. The internet did what the internet does. My phone filled with bile. Headlines spun narratives out of thin air. Waitress gate trended. My mother squeezed my hand in a little Polish place in Greenpoint, while pierogi went cold. I asked Catherine what we do. She said, "We wait. We gave him a chance to be decent once. He failed. Let's see what he does when the bill is his." Her eyes like steel. But the thing about mirrors is once you see yourself clearly, it's hard to unsee it. He called a press conference instead. Finished diligence in hours. His engineers had already torn through my code and come back with one word: flawless. Finalized the contracts on the generous terms he chose himself. Then, at 2 p.m., stood under a churning storm of camera shutters and said the quiet part out loud. That Tiffany lied. That my work was real. That he was investing $40 million for 20% and seeding a foundation in Nightingale's name with 5 more. And this mattered more than the money. That last night in a restaurant he let bigotry pass unchallenged, and he was ashamed. When he called me to the stage, lights white-hot on my face. I walked out in the same charcoal suit, took the podium, felt that old fear try to crawl up my spine, and said, "Huge, Richard." Then, "My name is Maya Kalski. My work speaks for itself." The narrative flipped. The brand that mocked mine began to sink. Sponsors don't love ugly screenshots, and the comments that had been knives turned into keys. Doors opening in places I used to dust for other people. I moved my parents into a place with light and space and a nurse who knows my father's favorite radio station. My mother took a literature seminar just for the joy of hearing lines read aloud. And I hired a team that looks like the world as it actually is: brilliant, messy, hungry. We built Nightingale into a refuge and an engine. I don't pretend we're saints, but the software forces us, and anyone who uses it, to look at the cost of every miracle we enjoy and choose better where we can. As for me and Richard, no fairy tale. Not the point. Weekly strategy meetings where he listens like his next billion depends on it, because maybe it does. A letter he wrote by hand that I keep in a folder I don't open often. Not because I plan to forgive or forget on a schedule, but because accountability doesn't expire. He broke up with Tiffany without theatrics. Her followers moved on to the next fire. The city kept breathing, and on quiet nights I still hear the restaurant's clink of glassware in my head and feel that first wave of heat at my cheeks. Memory lodged under the skin like a splinter you don't pull because you need the reminder. The best part, the part one never say out loud in rooms where men in suits like small talk, is how that morning felt in the elevator after I told him don't fail the second test. The way the doors closed and my stomach caught, and I realized I'd been holding my breath for years. Not just for one night, and I finally let it out, long, steady, a release that tasted like metal and victory. Yeah, that happened, and it wasn't revenge, not really, it was balance. Tables not turned, but set right, a place for every dish, and every name pronounced the way it deserves. So here's the closing shot, cinematic if you like, me on a dim platform, cue line roaring in. Wind in my hair that's no longer pinned like a penance, phone buzzing with 100 new problems that are mine to solve, not mine to survive. And somewhere uptown, a boardroom window reflecting a man who decided to be better in public because he failed in private. Does that make him good, or just corrected by consequence? You tell me. Because the scene fades before the answer lands. And maybe that's the point. We don't get verdicts, we get choices. We get the next thing we say in the next quiet room when someone smaller than us needs us to speak. If this hits something true for you, dignity over noise, work over gossip, share it with someone who might need a reminder that first impressions aren't final judgments. Drop your story in the comments about the time you proved someone wrong, or, be honest, the time you were the one who needed to rethink your own snap judgment. Let's talk about right and wrong, about what justice looks like in everyday rooms, and whether a public apology can fix a private failure, because the argument isn't noise to me, it's the point. It's how communities get better when we dare to keep the conversation going.